Welcome to Guitar Gavel, a place for people who love guitars. These are conversations with musicians, guitar enthusiasts, techs, and collectors about their guitar journey and their love of the instrument. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit the subscribe button, share with your friends, and be sure to sign up for our twice weekly newsletter at guitargavel.com. Hey everybody, welcome to Guitar Gavel Podcast, a podcast about people's guitar journey and their love of the guitar. I'm David Still. I'm happy you have joined us. I'm so glad you're here, and we've got a special guest this evening, Ron C., another friend of mine from the interwebs, hanging out with us this evening, and he's got some really cool guitars and his guitar story, and he's going to share that with us, and I'm just really excited to have him. Ron, thanks so much for coming on Guitar Gavel. Appreciate it.
Thank you, David. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, and thanks for having me. And I'm excited to be here.
Well, it's my pleasure and a real treat. And so, kind of the standard line of questioning, I think, when you talk to any guitar enthusiast is, how'd you get started? How'd you start playing? What was the catalyst for you to start playing? So we'll just jump right in and go, and I'll let you take it away from there.
So I started when I was in 8th grade, just before I turned 14. The first guitar I got was a Harmony, like a student-sized acoustic. And I remember I bought it from a place called Consumers Distributing. It was like a warehouse store where they had the catalogs in front, and you wrote down what you wanted, and then they go bring it from the back, and there you go. And it's a 3/4 size guitar, but that was okay. I was just a scrawny kid at the time. And got it home, and I didn't know anything about it. I think it started off as like a nylon string guitar, but in attempting to tune it up, I snapped every single string. So then I ended up going to the local music store, and it became a steel string after that. I'm surprised it managed to bear it up. It wasn't a very high quality guitar, but I played that for ages. I just loved it. It looks like it's been through the wars, but I still have it. I've kept it around for sentiment.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
How is the action really high on it? I know my first guitar, my first acoustic was a Bentley electric acoustic. It was another year before I got an amp. It was like Christmas one year, and then the next year it was the amp for Christmas. But the action was high enough. It was all, it was close to being a turnoff. And I remember I did have the bridge lowered, the saddle lowered, but I don't remember the specifics about that. But because it impeded my ability to play. How about you?
It didn't seem so high. Like I played other ones, around that time where it was like, oh, that much space, and you really had to. But I think then it was more like brute force, like, well, just bear down and
yes.
make the strings kind of work. And that's remember getting calluses, like, whoa, what's happening? And then that was sort of your badge of honor. And then the next level was like, well, I've played so much that my calluses have gone away. Right. So that was the next step. No, I don't remember the action on that being very high, but it's funny though, like in hindsight, action was never really like an issue for me. I would be like, that's okay. And then when other people kind of pointed it out, like, oh, that's got high action, it's like, you know what, you're right. Wait, you can do something about that? Let's lower that. So, yeah. But it was fun. It was like making the guitar, cooperate. So.
Right. And look, there's something about, if you're able to grind through the high action on a first guitar, I would argue that it's probably going to make your fingers stronger and likely make you a better player. So when you get the next one, or you have the action lowered, you're like, okay, I just all of a sudden became like twice as good instantly.
Yes. Why was I trying so hard before?
Right. Oh, it's not supposed to really be like this.
So
when you were, it was 8th grade. So what music were you digging at that age?
Right. So I've been a lifelong fan of the Beatles, and I think that was around that age to really started getting into it, but not from a guitar standpoint. I think more from a music appreciation, songwriting standpoint. But the thing that got me, I remember thought about this, is Stevie Ray Vaughan. I grew up in Toronto, and Stevie Ray Vaughan had come to Toronto on his tour, and he played a little club there called the El Macombo. and a local TV station, they had filmed it, and they broadcast it. They made it like a 1 hour special from it. And David, I was hooked after seeing that. You can get it now on DVD, probably stream it somewhere. It's just crazy. Just him and his backing band, bass and drums, and him just burning through all of these songs. And it was right then and there, it's like, I want to be a blues musician. This is what I'm going to do with my life. And in hindsight, really, like, what does like a 13-year-old kid living in suburbia with his parents really know about the blues?
Right.
But I was determined, and that was the one that's what sort of sparked me to get into actually playing. And of course, a student-sized acoustic guitar is not it. So I needed to get an electric guitar, which was it's funny you mentioned about Christmas. Like, that was around Christmas. A year later, of course, yes, we'll go get you an electric guitar. We went through the classified, the used guitar ads. We found one for $100. It was an El Dega. It's one of those Japanese brands.
Yeah.
It was a Les Paul custom Black Beauty copy. It was beautiful.
Ooh, yeah.
But it wasn't a real Les Paul. It was like, I remember it was $100 with a case, which was it's probably about $3,000 in today's money, but it was $100 with a case at the time. And I remember it was so many issues with it. Like, the output jack was like cutting in and out, and the pots were scratchy. And at that time, it wasn't until later, like, oh wait, you can spray them and you can clean up the pots, right? But it was like, that's just how it is. And the pickups, the springs that held them up, sometimes they would collapse and the pickup would fall into the body. But
yeah, that's a little frustrating.
But fortunately, I had my dad as my guitar tech at the time. He soldered up the jack, so it was better. The pots remained scratchy. Excuse me. The pickups we kind of fixed, but that was okay for a while. And then a few months later, for my birthday, I got a little practice amp, a Roland Spirit 10A. I remember it so clearly. I loved it. It was very basic, but it had a regular input and an overdrive input, and it had a 3-band EQ, just bass, middle, treble. And the thing I found is that if you turn the mid down, you could get a nice crunchy sound. And with the Les Paul, or just growing up at that time, Led Zeppelin and the Who and bands like that were there. It's like you do your best Jimmy Page
right.
with that Les Paul. But yeah, but that's really kind of what got me into the journey at that time. So.
And did your circle of friends, were they starting to play? I mean, did you have any family members that were players, or SRV was the hook?
He was the hook, but you're going to middle school, high school. Other people are getting into it, and you trade licks. And I remember, like, I still really can't read music. I mean, tab is one thing, but sheet music I can't read. But I remember a friend giving me an old, from his family, like an old Mel Bay book.
Yes.
And this was so old, David, that it was actually, a guy in a suit and tie sitting like this, and showing you the chord shapes. And it was but it was a starting point. And I just remember, the excitement of learning your first chord, and then the struggle with the F bar chord, which is still, the struggle is still real to this day. It's always the one that gets me.
Yeah.
But definitely, like, between friends, no YouTube back then, obviously, but anything that you would see, right? Concerts on TV, like, what were they playing, or how are they playing it, or picking up from your friends. Definitely, it's the way to go. But it's funny you mentioned, like, other influences. I had thought about it. My actually first maybe kind of subconscious influence was my maternal grandmother. Here's the story behind this. So in the earlier, mid 1900s, right, last century, Hawaiian music started getting very popular around the world because of this artist named Tawa Moe, I think it was his name. He kind of toured around the world and made Hawaiian music popular, including in India. So as a result, because it became fashionable, my grandmother started taking Hawaiian music lessons on lap steel. And she was part of a school. And I remember seeing pictures of her in school concerts of this orchestra of all these people playing lap steel Hawaiian music. And so later when I found out, and like I said, "Oh, what kind of guitar did you have, Grandma?" And she's like, "Oh, I had a Hofner." Like my eyes went like, "Do you still have this Hofner?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I was like, visions of Hofner in my head. We went up, unfortunately, with the humidity and everything, it was not even kindling at that point, but it was like, oh, but she was there. And it turns out later, actually, I found out like my mom actually played lap steel, and my mother-in-law did as well, but I've never seen them play. I think there was never guitars around the house. I think after getting my guitar, my mom actually did the scales once on the guitar, like not in Spanish style, but like lap steel style, and then that was it. So it's been always kind of there in the background, but it's Stevie Ray who kind of lit the spark for me. So
How about that? Yes, and all women influenced
yeah, no, that's true.
is
That's true.
really neat. Yeah, yeah. So when you're progressing out from into your teenage years, you've got the Les Paul knockoff. What was next on the list? What ended up in your possession?
I didn't get bit by the guitar bug. For years it was just that little acoustic and the Les Paul knockoff. It was maybe more than 10 years. Like the next one I bought was a Korean Squire Strat.
Okay.
So I was good for about 10 years there, David. And it kind of went downhill from there. But Strat again, I've always been, even though playing the Gibson-ish guitars for so long, I've always been partial to Fender, probably because of Stevie Ray, or I think about David Gilmour. On the his Strats are famous, but I don't know if you ever seen his solo album About Face. On the back cover, he has this beat up old Esquire. It's just
Okay.
Go look that up. You
will.
Oh, that's a drool worthy guitar for sure.
I'm making that note now.
And so I've always been kind of partial to Strats and just that sound. So then I went down to one of the big music stores in town one day and said, "I'm getting the Strat." It was just up there, nothing special about it. It was black with a white pick guard, I guess, kind of like an Eric Clapton-ish looking Strat.
Mm-hmm.
But what I loved about it is you get it home, you plug it in, and on the 2 position and the 4 position, you just get that Strat sound, and so just dialing that in and all those classic tones from it, that was my main guitar for a while. So
yeah, it's once you have that in your hands, and since you've been playing Les Paul prior, a copy of one,
mm-hmm.
and now you're getting those sounds you've been hearing your whole life in your hand.
Right, that's very true.
Yeah. So you over the course of the years, of course, like many of us as we grow up, continue to acquire guitars, and you've now gone on to have a few on your own. What are some of your favorite ones? I know you've got a few to show us, and you and I kind of before the show swapped some notes, and you let me see some pictures of your guitars, and I said, "Ooh, these are ones that I'm interested in, but also the ones that you're interested in." And we were like-minded, so I believe you when you said, "Oh, those are the ones I'd like to talk about too."
Oh yeah, well, me, I can talk about guitars for days, but yeah, I the ones that you picked were also the ones I thought might be of interest. So let me if you don't mind, I'll grab a few.
Yes, please.
So let's start with this one. I don't know if you can.
No, that looks great.
See this, okay? So
yes.
It looks like a Strat. It sounds like a Strat, but there's a little story behind this one, and I'll take a minute if you don't mind. So
please.
There's flipping through Vintage Guitar Magazine, I saw there's this band called Thermal and a Quarter, and the gentleman was he's playing excuse me, what looked a lot like a Strat, but like you look at it, it's like it's a Strat but not quite. And I read through and it said, yeah, this was custom made for me by this gentleman named Erisa Neogy. And I thought, oh well, you know what, I need one of these too. I don't have that many custom guitars. This is one of 2, but let me see if I can find Erisa and see if he can make one of these. he's nowhere to be found. And you know, this is probably not even 10 years ago. So you expected some sort of digital footprint for him.
Yes.
Nowhere to be found. Search, search, search. I finally find somebody on Facebook with a similar spelled name, but it's a picture of a kid. There's an old picture, like maybe it's him, maybe it's not. It said, "Hey, are you the guitar guy?" No word. Like 2-3 months later, it's like, "Yes, yes, I am. What can I do for you?" And I said, "Well, you know, I saw this guitar." And so he sort of you know, dropped out of society. He was living in an ashram, like sort of a commune in India. He makes about maybe 10, 12 guitars a year, if that.
Okay.
And I said, "Hey, can you know, I'm nobody special. Can you make one for me?" "Oh, absolutely." So it turns out he used to work at Santa Cruz Guitar Company in the 80s.
Okay.
So you know, he's got some skills. I just want to point out a few features on this that really kind of make it, you know, special to me. So the wood is Indian red cedar, which, you know, is a non-traditional choice of wood, but it's great. This is called Purple Heart. So this is a wooden pickguard. And I believe the neck is made out of wenge. I think it's an African wood.
Okay.
There's one part of this, and I can't remember exactly, but he said it was like from a 200-year-old building that he like reclaimed the wood from and used in here. So this guitar has some built-in history. It's a mix of old and new in the sense of I got the Lindy Fralin pickups, which I love. Like these are the 54s, so they sound. This is the closest I'll get to that 54 Strat. And, you know, a lot of new hardware. It's a compound radius, so you can't really tell, but, you know, from 8 to 8.5 to 12, so a little easier to play here. He's done a few things. And then the other thing I was just thinking about today is there is no truss rod in this,
Okay.
which is usually like you would need. I guess the wood's strong enough, but just the bolt pattern on this is kind of unusual.
Yeah.
I've only seen that on like I think a John Page before, but I love this. Is probably one of the best guitars I've ever played. I love playing it. It just sounds so Stratish, but also not Strat at the same time. Like if you want to dial in the Strat sound, you can. But it's heavy, but it's good though. I like it.
So after you placed your order, how long did it take him to deliver?
Oh, it took a really long time. I think. And just the last part of that story there. So it took probably a year and a half, maybe. Like I had to gather all of the hardware together, you know, the tuners and the pickups and everything. Oh, and so I had to order. This is funny. I ordered it, you know, Lindy Fralin's shop, like I ordered it, and then I get a phone call. It's like, "Oh, yes, hi, this is Lindy Fralin. I had a question about it." It's like, why is Lindy Fralin like usually has people that do that, right?
That's awesome.
Little brush with fame there, like I flummoxed Lindy Fralin on my pickup order. But you know, I had to get that bundle up, somehow shipped to him. It's not just shipped to India, it's shipped to some very obscure, tough to get to place in India.
Okay.
He's making it, and then it just turned out like about a year or so later. I was making a trip there, and I said, "Hey, if you can get this done, I'll take it back with me." And he's like, "Yeah, I'll get it done. I'll get it." He shipped it, but then he hadn't installed the nut, and so then it sat around for a while. I had to find a luthier here in the U.S. who I trusted to kind of finish it off. So end to end, it was a couple of years, but it was so worth it, David. It's just I try to make this my, you know, I have many guitars, but I try to make this the main one because this is, you know, unique and special to me, and nobody else has it. It's a shame if I don't play it more. So
that is such a special story. Impressive, and it's so cool that he, you know, he saw your message and responded so much later in time, and it sounded like being in a hard to reach spot. It's maybe fate, the fact that he actually was able to even respond.
Well, I was just surprised that he even agreed to you know, make this guitar for me, because the other ones he makes for, like, you know, professional musicians, you know, and I'm like, I'm honored though. So we're in regular touch now, but it was just the like initial time that was this kind of tricky. So I have another one. And if you can see this or not. The shape might be a little strange, and the layout might be a little strange, but we'll talk more about it. But I'm sure the headstock you can recognize.
Of course.
Yes, it is a real Rickenbacker. It's a 1992 signature model that they made for Glenn Frey. I think they made it just for a year or 2 years, not very long, in 92, 93. And it's very different from Rickenbackers that we're used to, right? With the hollow body and the German carve and, you know, the Beatle-ish stuff. And you know, the pickups, they seem like, I'm not sure exactly what they are, but it's a very kind of like futuristic looking,
It
very
is.
modern looking guitar. The pickups are you know, not chimey, but I find when you really dig into it, like really dig into it, then you hear a little bit of Rickenbacker coming out, but it's very kind of an unconventional.
Futuristic is a great way to describe it, because you maybe in 1990 you would think, hey, here's like a subtle futuristic what a Rickenbacker would look like in 2020. You know?
Yeah, no, true. No, and here we are in 2022. Rickenbackers have gone back to the old look for the most part, but so I had bought this off of eBay, and so it was from a guitar shop, but I bought it off of eBay. I didn't have a case or anything, and then I get it, and then it's interesting. I don't know if you can see, like on the pick guard, it says Glenn Frey.
Yes.
But then on the body, it also says Glenn Frey, written in like silver Sharpie.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's strange. I did some research, and I found from the Rickenbacker archives when they had the announcement of it, and they said that some of them, most of them are like this, and then some of them Glenn actually signed. And so I have no provenance of it. I can't prove. But you know, I the best I can do is kind of match the pick guard to the actual signature here. But yeah. I'm at least in my heart, I feel like this was actually, you know, touched by Glenn and signed by Glenn. You know, being a big Eagles fan, you know, so.
Well, and one would think if the seller on eBay wasn't trying to sell it as a Glenn Frey autographed of his own signature Rickenbacker, then probably that's really his signature. I mean, you know, that's when I would really maybe question if that wasn't him, you know, him personally signing it. If somebody was trying to hype it up, and then, you know,
well, no, and that's a very good point though, because I think I kept the receipt somewhere, or I have the email somewhere, but it didn't say, oh, signed by Glenn Frey, you know, pay extra. I think I got this for like $800, and
wow.
And so maybe they didn't realize what they had. Who knows? But you know, I'll cherish this one. I won't let go of this one very soon. So
yeah, that's so cool. What else is behind you, Ron?
This one, I'm sure David needs no introduction, but I will introduce it. the famous Beatle bass. I believe it's the 500-/1, the 63 model, played by Paul, but played this way, of course, with a pick guard on that side. This is like a mid-90s reissue, but it's very authentic. And the funny thing is that because I bought this used, it actually has some patina on the pickup, so I can pretend it's a 63.
And I can see that it's very clear, you know, in your camera, the patina. That's fascinating. Yeah.
So out of them, you know, like super light, you know, hollow, you know, awesome tone on this. I can't play like Sir Paul, but at least I can pretend.
Yeah, we're all. I don't want to say we're all, but many of us are pretending all the time anyway. So it's great.
No, especially with bass players, like, yeah, I play just like James Jamerson in my head, you know, or Carol Kay. So like that's a different skill set, but yeah. So, but this it's a beautiful workmanship. I know that Hofner had the Ignition series now, which I think, you know, reasonable facsimiles of it, but this one really kind of historically accurate, and you know, just plays like a dream. So
when did you start tinkering around on the bass?
Probably like 25 years ago, maybe. But again, I'm a horrible bass player. I actually later on I took some lessons, and the guy's like, you know, well, I'll just play the root and you'll be fine. Like, okay. So yeah, I'm not, any, John Paul Jones or John Entwistle or anything. I was, fabulous bass players that like just try to keep the low end down and you'll be
Yeah.
fine. So,
And how long have you had that one, Ron?
this one maybe 5 or 6 years, so
Okay.
a little more of a recent addition. But when you pick the sort of the special ones, I said this one is definitely special. So
Yes.
all right,
Any other,
sorry, go ahead.
do you have any other basses? I don't think.
I do. So I have they're all so I have a precision knockoff, which again, Carol Kay, I was actually planning on. I still will. I think set it up the way she has it with the foam mutes and the picks. Maybe play that way, get that classic Wrecking Crew sound. I also have a jazz bass, again, also inspired by John Paul Jones, which when I play, it doesn't sound anything like him, but it has a nice tune. It's a Squire, but like for a guitarist, I think that's a pretty good thing. The one you've seen the Beatles documentary that came out, Get Back, right? I think
I have not seen it.
Okay.
No.
So
my father-in-law sat me down and made me watch it when we were visiting over Christmas.
It is 9 hours. I did watch it over Thanksgiving weekend, but it's a time sink for sure. But they show the Beatles playing a lot of the Fender the Bass 6 that was there, and I think that's one I would like to add to the collection. That's a good bass for guitar players, and I think also too. I think Dan Electro had a model like that as well, just sort of not the full 34-inch scale, a little shorter, but I'm more of a tinkerer with bass. Just
sure. Just stay with the root. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's a secret. And then let me show you one more. Probably one of the prettier ones that I have. So this is a more recent one. I think it's a 2019. It's a Fender Mahogany Blacktop, part of their series, the HH. And you can see it's just sort of the black on black. It's just absolutely stunning. And the gold hardware just really pops on it.
I love gold hardware. And black on gold, of course, or black. I mean, it's just
a classic.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful.
The hidden thing on this is that because it's the HH setup, the wiring is all. You need a scorecard to see which ones are turning on and off and in phase, out of phase, and stuff. But it's got some interesting tones. But I think it's more of a show guitar, to be honest. But again, this is their the Mexican series. So, but the build quality is just amazing, and I think that's the thing too. Like I think when we were growing up, you either had like the very very expensive guitars, and then relatively poor. The quality wasn't quite as good. But the stuff that's coming out of these factories now, Mexico, Indonesia, etc. If you have like just an entry level guitar, you're doing much better than you were like maybe 30, 40 years ago. So.
In like so many other things. Yeah,
for sure.
So that's a 2019?
2019, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
It is gorgeous.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. That's great. So so you didn't have to lug in your whole collection into your office there. Were there any ones that, so those were, as I mentioned earlier, you kind of gave me a quick tutorial. Hey, any ones that pique your interest? And I said, yeah, these are the ones. And we were kind of on the same page. Are there any that you didn't bring out that really have a special meaning to you as well?
Yeah. So there's a few that I have sort of historically significant, or just relics. Like I have a PV, I think it's the T60, I believe. Like one of the original ones.
Yeah.
And
the T60 was the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. So it looks very basic, but I got it more for like historical, that was, and let me tell you how. Actually, let me just tell you briefly how I started my gas journey. Because
Yes.
somebody who had like two guitars over 10, 20 years, what happened? This is the mistake. This is the warning for everybody. I got a copy of the vintage guitar price guide. They have the volume they publish every year.
Yes.
So, okay, that just fun read. I started flipping through. Oh wait, that's an interesting one. Oh, that's an interesting one. That combined with eBay, the internet, I think Reverb now. Then you like, let me get this one. And it sort of snowballed from there. So that's really where it was. So I started looking for historically significant guitars, or guitars that I found interesting. That was one. I have one which is made in Soviet Union, probably in the 80s, called Formanta. And that one looks like it's from outer space. Like the Soviet way of doing things was so different, but that really looked like all these, like NASA switches and things. It's out there. I have a nice old Fender lead, that's just nostalgic. The one with the most interesting story though, David, I think is there's a guitar I saw. It was a Strat-ish guitar. It was an Ibanez Roadstar 2. I don't know if you remember those with the master guitar. I remember seeing that around the time I was looking at the Les Paul copy. I saw that one in the music store, and I'm like, oh, that's great. But if it's new at the time, it was just a little too much money. And I remember I had an issue of Guitar Player magazine. They had it in the back in an ad like that one, and that sort of haunted me for a while. And then again, one of these like wake up at 2 a.m. looking for things. I just searched for this guitar randomly, and that one came up. Like this is almost 30 years later. That guitar came up, and I hadn't hit buy it now not on anything ever. That's sitting here, and it's just like teenage me was so happy. Like, yes, you got that exact guitar you saw 30 years ago.
Yes.
But
I mean that's an incredible feeling, and it was your destiny. I mean, you buy now so fast,
Well, no, for sure. Well, Peter. You've heard Peter Frampton getting that guitar back after 35 years, and even the guy Randy Bachman got his guitar back after so many years. Like, one day they will come back. Well, hopefully they'll come back to you, right? But who knows?
Yes, like this one did for you. Yeah, I like the historical context aspect to your journey. In fact, I live in a small town. We have one music store, and then there's a pawn shop that it can be very hit or miss, like any pawn shop. But the music store has he's got it labeled as an 83 ESP. Their traditional series, so it's just a straight up Strat knockoff completely. And I think he's got a fair price on it. I didn't think they were imported, the traditional series in 83, or even maybe they didn't even come out till 84, 85. I can't recall, and maybe that I'm incorrect, but that it's a clean, beautiful guitar, kind of that cream with a white pick guard, but it's not a gazillion bucks. I think he has, and he mentioned he has flex on it. I think he's got it at $1,300 or $1,200, but that's a historical contextual guitar too. I mean, that's ESP's first guitar in the United States. It was before ESP came out with more super Strat style guitars and more progressive looking guitars, and it's a great one as well. So to your Ibanez, had to throw that little tidbit in.
Well, if I may say, when in doubt, buy the guitar, David. You have to get it.
We were having this conversation before. Of course, the one I was referencing was almost peanuts.
Get them both then. Although,
come here. You need to see Ron. I'll make sure she sees this clip.
Although I wanted to get your thought on just with the pandemic bubble of the prices going sky high.
Yeah.
Have you seen any prices softening now, or?
I haven't seen any prices softening. And speaking of the vintage guitar buyer's guide. I need to order mine. Do you get one every year? Or do you get one every few years?
I get one every so often. I generally try to stay away from it, but I do get one every so often.
Yeah. And I just haven't done it, but I need to do it because I'd be interested to see what their pricing is going to look like. Because certainly it's going to be a reflection of this bonkers year, which is, I don't think, and I wasn't in tune with it in 2007, 8, 9, whenever, when everything crashed, but guitars crashed big time. They were overinflated. I know to my understanding, unless they came back to that in 2021, excuse me, I said 2020, referencing it here a few seconds ago. I don't know if they've come back to that pricing and those valuations or not, but certainly it's a pandemic bubble. And it's the same thing with used cars in many ways. I mean, it's so many things, but I mean, guitars are, very collectible, and people were sitting on money and spend.
For sure. No, unfortunately, I did have some cash around when that 2008 bubble burst. So I didn't get that 59 Sunburst, but I got enough stuff.
That's perfect. Oh man, Ron. Well, this has totally been a lot of fun. I did want to ask, you talked about, just kind of circling back to your guitar story a little bit, Stevie Ray Vaughan wanting to play the blues. And as we mature and get gray hair,
or no hair in this case, but yes, that's fine.
our styles and taste of what we like to play and what we enjoy listening to change. Does that change for you as you've grown more mature, or is it still, you're still digging, really playing the same stuff when you were 15 or 18 or whatever?
I still love playing the old stuff of, the blues and the classic rock stuff, but my tastes have expanded. Actually, I'm mostly a self-taught person, but I did take lessons. I took flamenco lessons actually for a couple of months.
Cool.
Which was, we'll leave it at that. And then I did take jazz lessons as well for a couple of months. But I do enjoy hearing a wider variety of music now. Like, Wes Montgomery, clearly he's, a great player. And I do have more appreciation for different genres, or even not complicated guitar parts, but just beautifully played. When you hear some of the folk stuff from the 60s and so on. Even Paul Simon, really kind of very underrated guitar player. He's not flashy and he's mostly on the acoustic, but my tastes have expanded. I think my playing is still, 3 chords and the truth,
Yeah.
kind of cowboy chords, and they say if you're playing the 4th chord, you're getting into jazz. But whatever you pick up and play. But I do enjoy exploring different things that kind of help you expand, just get you out of your comfort zone and try different things. But you always go back to your favorites always. So
yeah, go back to your roots. I mean, if that's what you just can't deny where you came from.
Yeah, that's very true.
That's so cool. Well, Ron, this has been a real treat. I really appreciate your time this evening, and I'm sure everyone's enjoyed the seeing your guitars and hearing your story. And I can't thank you enough. And as our taste continue to expand, we may have to get back together and revisit.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Always enjoy talking about this. And really enjoyed just sort of talking about the little history behind these, and looking forward to maybe. Hopefully you'll bring me back. I can show you, 4 more. So
yeah, I'll take you up on that, man. That is perfect. Well, thanks so much, Ron. Hang on here for a second after we say goodbye, and we'll catch up. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Guitar Gavel podcast, and a special thanks to Steve Kuykendall for composing this music and being such the great guy and friend that you are. As a reminder, hit the subscribe button and sign up for our twice weekly newsletter at guitargavel.com.